All right, folks, mouthpiece is in, cup check time, hard knocks and cheap shots. So let's start off with the Survivor Series.
Yeah, this Sunday, one of the big four pay-per-views coming up, huge lineup, and apparently huge injuries coming up through that way. Now, apparently word has it now that former WWE champion Sheamus is going to be out for that pay-per-view with an injury, and Eric Rowan is taking his place.
I like Eric Rowan. I actually would love to see the rivalry between him and Luke Harper, which is the teams what they're building up, especially with Harper now the Intercontinental Champion. This is a good way to start it, considering that Sheamus is probably going to be out for a while. It kind of makes it interesting when they're going to do it Rusev now, because that's the feud that they had going. So it'll be interesting what to do with that.
Now, personally, I know the guy gets a lot of heat, but I personally like Sheamus. I always found that it has that little extra edge of color of some sort that some of the big guys have been liking.
He has no color.
But
come on.
The fact is, if you are a Sheamus fan, then you got to be concerned about the fact that this is like the second such injury that he's had in the span of 2 years. Last year was his tricep. And now this time around, it's a second. Now you have to start wondering if the injuries are starting to build up here.
And it just goes, right now WWE's got an injury bug problem with Daniel Bryan out, Roman Reigns out, although he might be back in December. Now Sheamus is out. Someone's going to have to step up. It might have to be one of these NXT guys he promote or something, because they're losing a lot of bodies.
Well, Daniel Bryan did say recently that he's going to be coming, that he is trying to aim for a return around January at this point. Now, I would personally love to see that, but given the fact that he still doesn't have strength in his arm right now, do you think it's possible?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where he's doing the surgery, he's not doing the surgery, he's doing the surgery, he's not. WWE's planning ahead as if he's not going to be back by WrestleMania, so that's kind of indicative of where he's at right now.
And moving on to boxing, interesting news from the Miguel Cotto-Canelo Alvarez fight that could be held at Cowboy Stadium on Cinco de Mayo weekend. It's really interesting development.
It's interesting because that's usually Mayweather Day, and Mayweather doesn't have an opponent yet, and unless he's going to fight Pacquiao, which we know is not going to happen, Cotto versus Canelo is a much more interesting fight than Mayweather against, say, Amir Khan or Devin Alexander or whoever Showtime puts in front of him. It's just styles make the fight. I'd rather watch Canelo versus Cotto because that's a very stylistically appealing fight to the eyes. Not only that, you got the rivalry between Puerto Rico and Mexico, which is an old school, boxing rivalry. I mean, that could be a slobber knocker right there.
Definitely, and if you're gonna, keeping in mind Cinco de Mayo weekend, that's one of the bigger, Latin-oriented holidays of the year. So, having two Latino fighters, getting on right there, that seems
having a Mexican fighter on Cinco de Mayo, filling out Texas Stadium or AT&T Stadium, however it's going by now. Again, it styles make the fight, and that's not a knock on Mayweather. I just feel that, if you're gonna drop $65, $70 on a boxing fight, Mayweather against Amir Khan, two counter punchers, or Cotto versus Canelo, two heavy hitting punchers, it's gonna come down. Do you want to watch the American style? Or do you want to watch the Mexican style? Me personally, I'm a fan of the Mexican style.
And moving on to UFC news, Dana White once again teasing in the headlines that Brock Lesnar, former UFC champion and rather big draw for the company, might be returning to MMA.
He's their biggest draw. I mean, he's the guy that gets $1 million pay-per-view buys, and I could see why he wants Brock back. Obviously,
he's the best in business right now.
Yeah. And at the same time, you can't discount Bellator. They've stopped doing this tournament style, and at the end of the day, Brock Lesnar is a mercenary. I mean, we see this with the WWE contract. He's going to go with what's best for business. If Bellator may not have the best stable of heavyweights, and let's be honest, neither does UFC. Look at that top five. Orlovsky, I mean, really? He can't beat Orlovsky? He can't beat Mark Hunt? Come on, seriously. And the thing is, he's going to go where the money's at. I wouldn't discount Bellator quite just yet. He'll probably end up with the UFC, but WWE is still a factor because he's got less work right there.
And that right there, I think that's the key, because if I'm getting paid that sweetheart deal where I only have to fight 3 times a year and or whatever it is and show up maybe 15, 20 nights, it's very hard to walk away from. It's easy money, it's guaranteed. And then you're talking about going back to UFC where, Brock, when he was at championship form, he was very dominant, but we all know his his history has been very well documented. I'm not 100% sure that he's ready to go back to the rigors of that.
I disagree with that. I actually think he's in better health now than he was when he left. That's definitely for sure. Whatever was ailing him, I mean, from what I understand, it was ailing him since college, since he was in the first stint in WWE when he was doing moonsaults. So I actually think that he does not want to go out the way that he did against Alistair Overeem. I think that's another factor in play. I don't think he wants that to be his legacy in MMA. And even though he's an older fighter now, I mean, there's a lot of guys in their mid to late 30s. Arlovsky, like he can't beat Arlovsky. The guy's got a glass chin. I mean, he's got to like his chances against in the Bellator stable or in a UFC stable. He doesn't want to go out the way he did. I wouldn't discount UFC.
Well, only time will tell what's going to happen for the Beast Incarnate. And that wraps up this edition of Hard Knocks and Cheap Shots. Remember, tune in next week for more. And to continue the conversation, remember to log on to LatinPost.com. I'm John Paul Salamanca, this is Em Molina, and we are punching out.